Hello and welcome to episode 29 of Some Like It Real. I'm Bryan.
And I'm Veronica.
And we're two cinephiles who love to talk movies.
We have weekly episodes discussing the newest films, creating lists and drafts, and keeping you updated on the latest movie headlines and awards races.
As a reminder, please like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms, which helps more people find the show.
And share it with any cinephiles in your life.
Today, we are bringing you a very big episode. We are bringing you our thoughts on the final seasons of two majorly popular shows, Hacks and Euphoria.
Yes, one of these shows got better as they went along, and the other one, not so much. Wonder which one I'm talking about.
Hacks, of course. Psych, just kidding.
Either way, we're excited to talk about the concluding seasons to two of the buzziest shows of this past decade. There's a lot to dissect, but we'll try our best to get through it all.
Well, everyone's always like, good news is always the best thing. So we're going to start off with the good show. We're going to get the stronger show out of the way. Always ideal to get the good out of the way first, like I always say. So let's get into season 5 of Hacks, the final season of Hacks. Crazy that now we live in a world where there's no more hacks. Veronica, what is your relationship to this show, and how did you feel about this concluding chapter?
I have loved Hacks since the beginning. It's an awesome show. I've watched it, I think, as it premiered, pretty much in real time, and stuck with it the whole way. Shout out to W Spotlight, where Marianne wrote an article asking fans of the shows what they love about it, and I contributed a little blurb to that. Go check that out. But just a little sampling of like the relationship that people have to this show. It's been super popular with the people who love it really love it, and I think it's just been consistently great ever since it began. I'm in for any kind of show business satire, and I love Jean Smart and like Frasier and the Brady Bunch movie and all of that. I think that was probably what pushed me to check it out originally. I didn't know Hannah Einbinder before this, but she's perfect as Ava, and then the whole host of great supporting characters and guest actors. But I think that Jean Smart as Deborah is like the greatest accomplishment of the show. She feels like so real. She's like an instantly classic TV character. So that's like what I kind of like just love most about it. And there were, the show started in 2021. There were so many hardships during the show's run for the production of it. It was, the height of COVID restrictions. Jean Smart had a health issue, and her husband passed away. There were the SAG and WGA strikes. Wildfires burned down one of their major filming locations. Like, this show has been through so much, and for being such a like, it's a dramedy, but it's like such a like at its heart a fun, uplifting like show about friends being friends and making art together. And it's like, we've all been through all of that stuff too, as these past 5 years. So it's just like that kind of show is just so welcome, and it's it's feel good, but it's not like dumb or playing down to you at all. Like, it has its bite as well. So I do think that it's good that the show ends here, like on the creators' terms, pretty much. Like Deborah and Ava had some back and forth of like falling out and making up, and like that sort of dynamic can only go on so long. Was kind of reminding me of Succession that way, where they're like, characters can kind of like grow and then reset. But I think for both shows, they were smart about like not overstaying their welcome. I think they, wrapped it up as felt better for the characters. I didn't love the finale that much, as we can get into, but I do love the final season and the series as a whole overall. I think it's so brilliant and wonderful, and just puts a smile on my face. But Bryan, what about you? How did you feel about it before going into this final season?
So I started Hacks when it premiered. I watched the first few episodes and then I fell off. Not because of the show, but just because life was very chaotic at that point and everything. And then I didn't jump back into it until right before season 3 came out in 2024. I went to South by Southwest that year, where they premiered the first 2 episodes of season 3, and HBO had sent me a ticket for the premiere, and I'm like, well, I have to go through the first 2 seasons before I go to this and everything. So I binged the first 2 seasons, fell in love with it, similar to everyone else, and then from there I watched it live the rest of the way. And yeah, the show just got better and better for me as it went along. It is so incredibly funny, but there's also a lot of heart to it and a lot of poignancy to it and a lot of drama that I really appreciated. The performances are extraordinary. Jean Smart, there's a reason why she's won multiple Emmys, and she'll probably win another one, just to get that out of the way. Hannah Einbinder was an incredible discovery thanks to this show. She's become one of my favorite people in this entire industry as an actor, as a comedian. I adore her very much, and it's all thanks to this show. I really love the sharpness of the show. It never lost its beat. I really loved this final season overall. I think that I'm going to be the one who says that the finale was great personally. I didn't know what direction it was going to go in, but I was really satisfied with how they ultimately wrapped up the show. And like you said, it's always a relief when a show ends on its own terms, when it doesn't get canceled or when it doesn't go on too long. The creators were like, 5 seasons is the perfect place to call it quits. And I'm really glad that they got to do it the way they wanted to do it. And I'm sad that we live in a world where there's no more episodes of Hacks. But I'm really glad to have been a part of this journey. And it's crazy that it's over because, I remember when this show premiered 5 years ago and now it's done, like just like that. And yeah, it was a really beautiful show, so incredibly funny, so heartfelt, and yeah, I loved it. Will go down for sure as one of the strongest shows of the 2020s for sure.
Yeah, I can see that definitely. Yeah, and I think that Hannah Einbinder is blowing up now. I mean, Jean Smart has always been an icon, but I think for a whole new generation of TV fans are falling in love with her now, and the supporting cast as well. So, yeah, let's get into this final season. We kick off with Deborah being sort of obsessed with her legacy after the false death reporting at the end of last season, and so I think that's kind of the theme throughout the season. She has, for a brief moment, she wants to get an EGOT, and then that's quickly dispensed with. But the real focus is her wanting to do this show at Madison Square Garden. Coming up with material, actually getting the booking and being able to advertise it while she's still on this gag order from the events of the previous season where she got out of her late night show and she's not allowed to appear in public at all. So, this is sort of the central plot line going on. And then how Ava falls into that, how she's trying to expand her own career outside of Deborah, and trying to be a TV writer. Yeah, how did all of this work for you? Were there any highlights there of Deborah's journey to Madison Square Garden?
I mean, there were so many great moments to highlight, and I just want to say that, not to jump ahead and talk about the performances, and we've already gushed about how great Jean Smart is in the show and everything. Like, just to see Deborah's journey of getting to this point and how passionate she was to make sure that she got the opportunity to do this show and everything to get herself out there because she couldn't handle the fact that for many, many months she couldn't go out and speak at all. She couldn't perform, like she couldn't do the thing that made her feel whole. And it was a very rewarding journey to get us to that point where she finally got to the show as the season progressed and everything. But there were just so many moments throughout the season. The build up to it was so funny because, like, Deborah was just so committed to being like, oh, I'm going to do an EGOT, or oh, I'm going to do an album where I sing like Spanish songs or whatever. Like, she does all these variety of different things just to get herself out there. But I thought it was a very interesting setup to the season, and I thought that ultimately, like, this made sense to make this like essentially the central conflict of the final season and everything. And I was reading online that some people thought that the big conflict of season 4 with her finally getting her late night show maybe should have been what they did for season 5. But I think that, her kind of having a bit of a fall and then rising up and then getting the show and then having the fall, and now this is essentially trying to get her rise back up, I thought was a really smart way of handling this final season, because it's like, what else could you really have done? Ultimately, I think they made the right call by having this be the focus of the season.
I think so too, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying, where like there was this push and pull with Deborah and Ava sometimes of like they're breaking up and getting back together. It's kind of like when Deborah does that for Ava at the end of the season and sacrifices her whole show. It's kind of like it binds them together in a way that is like pretty unbreakable. And there was no point in the season where I was like worried we were gonna have that like back and forth again. Like, it was like we went into this final season knowing that whatever happens, like, they're bonded, they're gonna have each other's backs, and I just like that being
it's like at that rate,
note.
if they're gonna do that again, it would have been like, then that emotional moment in season 4 would not have felt earned at all.
Yeah, for sure. So and then it works out so that we see them taking on the outside external forces, but being good with each other. And I'm glad that they played out the final season that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, how did you feel about the way that the season was structured, like pacing wise? Do you think it flowed very nicely? Do you think we had enough time spent with all these characters and their journeys? What was your takeaway with all of that?
I think it was pretty good. Yeah, I think that there were, they kind of had some, or it was very much like episodic TV. Like there were arcs that were kind of wrapped up within an episode or so, or at least in individual plot lines. I liked the bringing in of the like rock star guy that Deborah dates for an episode or so.
Yeah,
He's sort
the
of a
guy from Summer I Turned
yeah,
Pretty.
yeah. I'm blanking on his name, but he was very good. Nico was the character, I think, but that's a kind of a more surprising thing to bring in. That's it could. I was glad they could still like introduce new characters in a final season rather than just try to like call back to everything old. But it did great in calling back with the characters we already have too. The Amazing Race episode with
Oh,
DJ was such a.
I
I was so
loved that
glad.
episode.
I was so glad they really committed to like it actually being like an episode of Amazing Race. Like
Hmm.
it took up the whole episode. We had the guest stars like Trisha Paytas and Jordan Firstman and stuff. Like that was really good. You got the sense there like okay, this is that was in the middle of the season somewhere, but you're like this is a great like final note for DJ and Deborah and their relationship. So like it left me feeling satisfied on that level too. But what about you?
Yeah, I really liked the way that the season was structured. It flowed very nicely and it was going very quickly. And I was really bumming me out because I'm like, oh my God, we're so close to the end of this show. It's like, oh, we're already on episode 8. Now there's 2 episodes left. Like, what? How am I supposed to function if there's only that little episodes left and everything? But I really liked a lot of the storylines that were incorporated. The Amazing Race episode was definitely a highlight for me for sure. The Cube, which was episode 8, where she's stuck in that cube. That was that. First of all, I'm terrified of heights, so naturally that whole segment, and I'm sure they filmed it on a soundstage. I'm sure Gene Smart was not 1,000 feet off the ground in a cube. Like, there's no way. But there were a lot of highlights throughout the season and everything. Some nice storylines and everything. Like, we talked about Deborah and Ava and everything, and obviously they're the core characters of this story. But we also had a good amount of storylines involving Jimmy and Kayla, who are always great additions to this show. Obviously, Jimmy is played by Paul W. Downs, who's one of the creators of the show, which is very, very cool. I always get a little hesitant whenever a creator of a show incorporates himself into a show because I'm like, okay, we get it. You have full creative control behind the scenes, and now you're trying to put yourself in front of the camera. And he's so good in this. I mean, everybody's great. The acting from everybody is top notch, but I loved a lot of the storylines. I can't particularly pinpoint a favorite storyline for me because there's so much that I loved from this season. But yeah, I really loved how everything flowed together and nothing felt rushed either for me, considering the fact that, this is a final season. You have to wrap up everyone's storylines and everything. But I didn't get a sense that everything was like trying to be paced quickly. I all flowed very nicely for me.
Yeah, a final season sometimes can feel like a little hermetically sealed, like they're trying to like touch on everything and like tie up any loose ends and all that stuff. And like I said, this like breathed a little. It wasn't afraid to introduce a new character, a new plot line, and just kind of let the characters be. Like it didn't feel that like pressure of like, oh, this is the final season, we have to make it feel like
Hmm.
that. How did you feel about some of the episodes deal with like different social issues and stuff? Like this is Hacks has done this in the past, but like the Who's Making Dinner episode when where Deborah's getting sort of a tribute for her old sitcom. There's a lot of discussion about how her ex-husband had taken a lot of the credit for that, and the way women throughout history are overlooked for their work. And then we had the like super explicitly anti-AI episode, which was fantastic because that's I feel like Hannah Einbinder probably like wrote her own lines for that because
Oh,
Ava just gets to be
100%.
like so like it does get you could definitely criticize it and say like, yeah, this was just kind of like a PSA on like why creators don't like AI, but like I don't mind. I feel like we need that in our media a little bit more. And yeah, what else? I mean, there's just a lot of, and this has come up before, Deborah and Ava are of a different generation, and one is, more working class and one is super rich. And so, like, these, political differences come up all the time. But yeah, I just thought that those were some highlights of this season. How were they working for you?
Yeah, I agree. I think it was important for them to address some of these topics, especially AI, because I'm trying to think if prior to this, was AI really mentioned at all in the show? Like, I can't really pinpoint any moments where it was. I'm sure it was probably mentioned at some point, but like
Mhm.
episodes explicitly devoted to how AI is really affecting this industry was not something that was in the show at all. So I'm really glad that they were able to touch upon that. And it didn't feel forced either. It felt like,
Yeah.
Hacks is one of those shows that's able to like stay up to date with how the industry is currently operating. And I liked that they devoted a whole episode to how like, oh, we want to use AI for this, but then Deborah and Ava are like, no, absolutely not. Well, Ava is strictly against it, obviously. And Deborah's like, I don't know, maybe it won't be that bad. And then she realizes, no, I don't want that to be affiliated with who I am at all. So I really loved how they addressed all of that. And then the Who's Making Dinner episode, which you brought up, was first of all, that was a very like euphoric episode for me because as someone who's been to the Academy Museum, I was like, oh, hey, I've been there before. So it's really fun to see a
Such a like cinematic place too, like the big, deck up
yeah,
stairs
it's
and
always
everything, the
fun.
terrace. It's cool.
It is always fun whenever you watch a TV show or a movie and then you just pinpoint you're like I've been there before. But yeah, I really liked that whole episode and everything. Yeah, I agree. I think that like the handling of these topics was really really cool and everything. But like I don't know. I'm trying to think of like other moments that stuck out to me, like other episodes and other storylines that really
There's
stuck
the
out
other
to me.
one. It was more of a joke punchline, but the Ava's date, who she is so proud that he's a sex worker, but she's ashamed that he's a magician.
Oh my god,
That was
that
so
was
funny,
too good.
and that's so
And then the
like
talk of magic comes up again later on in the season. She's like,
yeah.
"Oh, I already dealt with one magician. I can't deal with another."
Yeah. Because that's so like, I mean, it's a funny joke, but it's also like so appropriate to Ava's character. Where like, yeah,
Oh,
I mean, she is a very like liberal leftist person, but like she's a bit like virtue signaling about it. Like she's like so proud to be like dating this sex worker, and it's like, yeah, but magician is, she just can't be that tolerant.
oh my God, it's too good. I want to take a brief moment, and I briefly brought them up. I thought everything with Jimmy and Kayla was genuinely great.
Hmm.
Like genuinely great. I mean, of course, comedically, um, they they're just the dynamic duo that I never thought that I wanted in my life, and I'm so glad that we got the two of them together. Like Megan Stoller and Paul W. Downs, like I don't know what's improvised, I don't know what's scripted, but like every time they're together, it's just comedic gold. And there are just things that Megan Stoller says as Kayla that may not necessarily be funny, but the energy that she brings to her, the expressions and the movements that she brings, it's just like, girl, you are a comedic force. Like it's impeccable what you're able to do. And I don't even know how Paul W. Downs is able to contain himself. I don't understand how he's able to do that. Because honestly, if I was in the same room as her, I would break out into laughter like everything that she says. Like every single thing that she says, I'm just like, Queen, go off.
For sure. Yeah, and we should mention that I think since season 4, they've also been turned into sort of a trio with the addition of Randy, who I also absolutely love.
Robbie
Robbie Hoffman
Hoffman.
is so funny. And yeah, for the three of them, it's like three wildly different energies. With Jimmy kind of mostly just serving as the straight man, but it's funny when he gets wrapped up into it. Or
Literally and metaphorically, the straight man.
yeah. Married to one of the other creators, Lucia
Hmm.
and Elio. But yeah, so Meg Stalter, yeah, she's just so like wild as a screen presence, and yeah, it's definitely like its own flavor of the show. Like sometimes it feels like Kayla and Jimmy are like on their own like little side quest that has like it just so like totally different sometimes from whatever's going on with Deborah and Ava, but it all works for me, and you see it when they all come together. It's not like this weird tonal clash. Like I think it all works out. And like it's some Hollywood people are weird and they've got these like outsized personalities, and like Kayla having that, and then Jimmy being the kind of character who has to like deal with that and account for that is just like they're just a great team.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I really love too is that, like, throughout all 5 seasons with Jimmy and Kayla, there is some poignancy that was sprinkled throughout their dynamics throughout each of the seasons. But I really loved how later on, as the season progressed and they lost their company and everything, and then they had to accept the fact that they are going to have to work with Kayla's father again. She's like, I don't want to do that. I loved what we built together and everything. It was just like a really special moment. Like, to me, one of my favorite elements of this entire show was when they would incorporate the more poignant, heartfelt, or even heartbreaking moments, because it's very hard to ride a fine line between making you laugh and making you cry. And I think that this show did it so beautifully, like consistently from season one until now. And this season, I thought, had a lot more dramatic moments than early on. Like, I think that the show got a lot more real as it progressed, because we started understanding these characters a lot more. We have been on much longer journeys with each of them, and you started to see them not only as characters, but you saw them as people. And you saw the human side of each of them, Deborah, Ava, and then everybody else surrounding them. And I really do love the way that this show was able to balance the two tones and everything, because it can feel very jarring when you watch a show that's primarily comedic, and then all of a sudden there's these very bleak, dark, serious moments. But here, it all felt earned, and especially in this season, I thought it felt earned. How did you feel about the whole balance between that, not just through this season, but throughout the entirety of the show?
Yeah, I think that it's very well done and very well threaded. It is kind of earlier on. I think in the first season, probably when I think Ava has the date with that guy who ends up committing suicide, and like that was like the first moment for me when I
Right.
realized like, oh, this show is like willing to get it. Like it's not just satisfied to be like a frothy comedy, even though it does that really well too. But yeah, that it was gonna like go there a little bit more. And yeah, that's it's seated throughout with again with kind of like the two sides of Hollywood and show business and working in a creative field where like everything is so high pressure and it's so dealing with other people's perception of you and the characters are deeply affected by that a lot of the time. So yeah, I think that they it manages to always kind of be there and it adds depth to the character because a show can be funny, but if you don't know and care about the characters that are in it, then it's just a funny one-off joke. So being invested in the characters and their history and their struggles, it helps to deepen everything, whether you're talking about comedy or drama. But that's a good segue when we're talking about some of the more dramatic moments to talk about the finale itself. So do you want to get into a little bit of a recap for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Deborah had performed her big show. I just want to actually say before we get into that,
Oh yeah,
so the
sure.
penultimate episode of the show, titled "The Garden," fittingly enough, um, we're finally building up to this moment. We're finally here where Deborah gets to perform her show on 9/11, which is crazy. Still,
Gonna be the
so
best 9/11 New York's ever had.
so good. That was so good. Um, so I want to say that when that episode was happening, I'm like, something's gonna go wrong. Like, I just have a hunch that something's gonna go wrong, whether it's with the show itself or with Deborah, because like, and we'll sprinkle into it when we get into the finale and everything. But I just thought that something was gonna go wrong, and I was correct. But what ended up going wrong, I did not see that coming at all. With the horrific Bob Lifka buying out all of Madison Square Garden so that nobody would see Deborah's performance. And my heart sank in that moment because of everything that Deborah had been working on to get to this point and everything. We were so excited for her. Everybody was excited for her. But when she was in her dressing room and Ava's like, "You need to come out here right now," I'm like, "Oh boy, what happened? Did nobody show up?" Oh yeah, nobody showed up except because one person bought out the whole fucking venue. So yeah, that was rough to get through. But she eventually ended up performing in Central Park in front of a record crowd of 30,000 people, and that was very rewarding. And I loved when I got texts from people being like, "Wait, that's it? That's not it? There's another one?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah, that could have served as a finale.
Yeah, I mean,
The triumphant
if
moment.
you really think about it, that could be the finale, and then the actual finale feels like a bit of an epilogue.
Mhm.
So, but I just wanted to highlight that moment and everything because, yeah, fuck Bob
I was
Lipka.
just gonna say that so solidified Bob Blipka as like an all-timer TV villain. Like even the fucking name, I'm like, God, I just hate you so much.
It's just so funny seeing Tony Goldwyn. Like he seems like a genuinely wonderful person in real life, but the last few years he's played like scummy people. I mean, look at what he just did in
Just
one
in
battle after
one battle,
another.
back to back. Yeah, that's a tough look.
Tough look for the guy, but he is Tarzan, so he'll always have a special place in my heart. You'll be in my heart, like the movie says. But how did you feel about the penultimate episode before we get into the finale? How did you feel about that whole reveal and everything? But then ending on a pretty uplifting note with Deborah again to finally perform and everything.
Yeah, you said it well. I could definitely tell that, it was going to be more complicated than just she was going to go out there and kill it and have this like, completely triumphant moment. Like obviously something was going to go wrong there. So, yeah, this was I definitely didn't see this exact thing coming. So that was a really interesting twist. And then yeah, it makes sense that, she wants to have this moment, this comeback, and she's built it up so much in her mind that like it has to be the garden because that's the biggest venue, and all of these things that are just sort of superficial at the end of the day. And it's like you've generated all of this buzz, and it's cool how throughout the season they were like being really creative about how to advertise it. And she was trying to get like news coverage because she couldn't actually put out statements and everything. So it's like you would imagine at this point in the outside world, like there's a lot of buzz about this performance. So it makes sense that she's like, that's okay, we don't have to do this through the existing standard channels of booking this huge venue. Like we're just going to take that energy and we're going to direct it to a show in the park. And apparently that breaks a crowd size record. And so she's thrilled with that. And we get to bring back one of my favorite guest characters, which is Laurie Metcalf as Weed, I think her name is, who is like
Hmm.
their like tour bus manager when they were on the road for that season. I going into this season, I was thinking about like all the random characters who I liked throughout the season, and I was like, I would love for her to be back at some point. So I was glad we got another check in with her. Yeah, so it just makes sense to have Deborah, brought down again by this man who is in control of her life and career to this outsized degree, but she, maneuvers out of it by doing things her own way, by going outside the existing channels and paving her own path. Like that was just so thematically perfect, and just really just like the beats of it just within the episode worked so well.
Absolutely. And yeah, Laurie Metcalf as Weed, that was so great. Thank you so much. Get the fuck.
She's like, she
uh,
loves me.
I love Laurie Metcalf. It was such a treat to see her in this final season pop up because yeah, that was what was that season 2 she was in?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that they brought her back because like it's Laurie Metcalf. You can't not have her come back. She's the best at what she does. Okay, the finale. Um, Going into the finale, I had theories of how it was going to wrap up. Not only because of like just ideas from the show itself, but from interviews that were preceding the season and everything with Gene Smart and Hannah Einbinder calling this finale like a gut punch and very sad. And Gene Smart saying that she was a little shocked by the finale. And I'm like, oh, great. I know exactly what that means and everything. And we'll build up to it. So the finale opens up. She had done the comedy show. It was a huge success. Ava got her Who's Making Dinner revival greenlit and everything at the end of the previous episode. And she's shooting the pilot for it. And also on top of that, Deborah and Marcus opened up this new casino called the Diva, which employs Marty and Kiki and Josephina and Damien and all these other characters that we've known throughout the entirety of the show. And Deborah and Ava have a sit down early on in the episode, and Deborah reveals to Ava that she has cancer, but she refuses to get treated. And at the end of the previous episode, or a couple episodes before, I believe, after the whole comedy show, Deborah was like, "You and me should go on a trip and everything. Like, we should go on a trip. We should have a good time, forget all of our troubles at home, and just have a nice time together." So they're going to Paris for a nice trip. And Deborah says that she will be then headed to Zurich for assisted suicide. And Ava refuses to participate in this. And she's like, well, I have to be there for her. I don't want her to do this, but I have to be there for this. So, how did you feel about this particular storyline coming in and everything? Were you surprised with the revelation that Deborah is sick and that she is going to voluntarily end her life and everything? Because I didn't see this coming, but there was a hunch where I'm like, oh, great. So she does die. Well, wonderful. Great. How did you feel about this? Like this initial part of the finale?
Yeah, I was surprised by it. They had seeded it a couple episodes earlier. I think the one with Cherry Jones and Leslie Bibb, that's where she lies to Ava about like going to get a medical test and stuff like that. So
Yes.
it had been like when it came up, I wasn't like, what? Where did this come from? Like I was like, okay, we're obviously building to this in some regard, but I thought it would maybe come up as something she's gonna, deal with or live with going on. Like I didn't expect it to fully come out as like I'm dying. I not only am I dying and it's gonna be an ongoing thing, but like I'm going to seek assisted suicide. Like that was like that was like a big leap. I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, I think that it's, when you have a series finale, there are like a lot of different tacks you can take with it. You can treat it like any regular old episode, or you can sort of like put a very like final bow on this. And so I was like, they are really putting a final bow on this if they're gonna kill off Deborah. And it was sort of jarring to me. It was like a real like raising of the stakes that we have not really dealt with. Like we've said, the show's been willing to get into some dark material, but like I've never been concerned for any of our main characters' lives in this sort of way. So I was a little surprised that they like, ratcheted up the tension to go that hard here in this last episode. And again, not something they might have mentioned it earlier, but it wasn't like something that was building and building throughout the season. So yeah, I was like a little jarred by it, but I was like, okay, willing to see where it goes. But not for a season that focused a lot on like, at the end of the day, comedy just has to be funny and you have to just enjoy it, enjoy yourself. I was like, this is not funny. This is like super dark.
Yeah, it's definitely very jarring, but I was just like, my whole theory walking into this season, mainly because of these interviews that the two actors had done prior to the season, I was like, there's just no way that this show is going to end on the happiest note. I just have a hunch that something is going to happen. Now, I didn't know what direction they were going to go in. And like you brought up that moment episodes prior where Deborah's like, "Oh, I had to go take a medical test." I'm like, "Oh yeah, so she's definitely croaking at the end of the season." Well, that's obviously going to be. I had a theory, and this was very very dark. I had a theory that like the night that she performed, she died. Like she was about to go on stage and then she died before she could even perform. And I'm like, no, that would be way too dark if they did that. That would be like really, really dark. Even for a show that does tackle dark subject matter, like that would be very bleak to end it on that note, especially if that was in the penultimate episode of the show. But this whole element of her saying that I lived my life, I did everything I need to do, I got to perform this show, I got to tell people what I wanted to tell. I don't need to do anything anymore. And the fact that she's so certain about going forward with it just comes to show like how open she was to doing it. But then Ava's like, I don't want you to go out this way. You have so much more time and everything, and you could just get treated and everything. And the whole bickering of being like, I don't want to do this. And she's like, but you have to. Don't leave me and everything. Um, yeah, it was very jarring, but I thought it was something that felt earned in terms of like adding stakes because for a show that didn't really have many, and yeah, it's the final episode, so it's like, oh, we don't really have a lot of time left and everything. I kind of liked that they incorporated something like that, and I thought it was a very interesting choice to kick off the final episode of the show. And getting into the progression of it, they go to Paris and they're having a really, really, really fun time. And there's so many sequences where they're just drinking and eating food and doing drugs and having the time of their life. And it's so great to see, especially because, we've spent 5 years following these characters and just seeing where they started and how we got to this point. It was all ultimately a very rewarding experience. But then, Ava being the person that she is, she's like, there are ways to make this work. And yes, getting treatment sucks, but there is a way to make this work so that you have a few more years left so that you can live forever and everything. But then Ava opens up about how without Deborah, she doesn't have anybody in her life. Like, Deborah is her person, and she doesn't want to lose what she had. And, you know, Gene Smart and Hannah Eyebinder crying their eyes out in that room in Paris. I'm just like, oh boy, here we go. Here we go. And I was like, well, congrats on your Emmys, but I just liked seeing that the finale wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. I liked that there was some emotional catharsis to it because, the show had those elements throughout, and each season ended with an emotional gut punch. So it made sense that you were going to have some sort of emotional punch in the final episode of the entire show.
Yeah, and I do enjoy the back and forth between Deborah and Ava, where it's the idea of Ava being like, "This isn't you to quit on something. This isn't like you to you're a fighter. You can go in and you can see what treatment's like, and you can fight this off just like you've fought for everything else in your life." And Deborah is like, "No, this is me. This is like me going out on my own terms and doing things the way that I want to do them, and having control over my own like." Sanity and life and everything. And it was interesting because no one knows Deborah better than Deborah and Ava. Like they've not only crafted this public persona of her for years now, but like who she is internally. And I like that there were sort of like different interpretations there of what is this super powerful, super lively, funny person, like what does she do like when confronted with something this difficult. So yeah, all those conversations back and forth really work. Them flaunting around Paris was just like exciting to watch, and I did really like this just super real like conversations there where they do sort of joke about it. They joke about her dying and suicide and stuff. I think it was in the first conversation when Deborah says like comedians have a rich storied history of dying by suicide, which is usually not in this way, but just the way that it like can sort of bubble up while they're like having a good time, and it kind of penetrates into everything. But yeah, that also I think as we can get into the very end a little bit more, but although it is sort of the idea of joke writing and working with Ava that kind of gives her a little more of the will to continue. But I think a lot of that goes into just like the stuff of life, the looking at a salt and pepper shaker that she wants to buy, but realizing that she shouldn't because she's not going to be around to enjoy it. And, treating Ava to eating real bread. And I think all of these things factor into, her ultimate decision, because she realizes that, maybe she's tired, maybe she doesn't want to fight, but like there might be things in this life worth fighting for. So it all plays out really, really well.
Yeah, and when that all happened and everything, I mean, I had realized this pretty much halfway through the show, I would say, but like this finale made me realize that this was a show really about love, a platonic love between two people, and how these two people needed each other more than they ever could have imagined. These people were the two people that made them feel less alone in this world. And obviously, the whole two different generations of it all and everything. Like, Deborah kind of felt like not only a bit of a motherly figure for Ava, but she was the friend that Ava needed, and the same for Ava for Deborah. Ava was kind of like a daughter figure, but she was also the friend that she needed. And the what we had thought would be the final exchange between the two of them, where they wait for the train, and then they write jokes about dying and everything, and then Deborah's like, I need you to write one last hour-long comedy special with me. And I'm like, okay, so she's not dying after all. My theory is completely thrown out the window, thank God, and everything. Although we still had like 5 minutes of the episode left, and I'm like, oh, I hope they don't do a time jump and she's dead. Thankfully, they didn't.
By a train or something.
Yeah. Thankfully, they did not do that. We learned that Deborah starts treatment, in Vegas, and they start working on stuff together again, and that's how the show ends. And I can understand that for some people this may not have been like the winning finale that they had wanted it to. I'm just glad that she didn't die. That my whole theory walking into the season was that the show was going to end with her dying, whether it was a very tragic way or maybe they time jumped and then Ava was successful and then Deborah had since passed on and everything. I'm glad that it ended this way because it's like I don't know. How would you have wrapped it up? Like, did you have a theory going in with how it wrapped up, or were you just like, I'll just see how it ends and everything?
Yeah, I didn't have a theory exactly. Like I said, I've been thrilled with this whole season so far and everything going into it. So I was, very, very trusting of like wherever you want to leave these characters. I did think, I thought we were going to be left with more of, I didn't think anything would be quite so final, which ultimately it kind of isn't. We are leaving them like, they're recommitted to the idea of doing what they do and loving each other and loving their work and all of that. So I was thinking we would get to that sort of ending, but I didn't anticipate this journey to get there. But it, like I said, the experience of watching it, I was a little like, oh, okay, this is kind of, like I said, jarring. But in retrospect, like, thinking back on it, and I think it hits all of those beats well enough. Like it's, the journey of like starting off the episode, like Deborah is fine, and then going to, she is dying and she's going to assisted suicide herself, and then coming back around to, she's willing to, take treatment for this and work on it while also, furthering her career and her work in life with with Ava. So, like that's a long journey to go on with a, whatever it was, 45-minute episode. So I think in the moment I'm like, where is this going? Where like, my brain is kind of firing. Like, am I gonna be happy with this? And I think ultimately when you take it in as a whole in stride, it does work for me. Ultimately, it's just definitely not what I expected. And I think that a lot of they could have maybe gotten here with a slightly different execution, but I'm not mad about it. I think that it's just definitely surprising from where I would think it would go.
Yeah, it was certainly surprising for me as well. But in retrospect, I'm like, I don't think they could have ended it any better. I think they ended it the right way. And I really liked how it all wrapped up and everything. And it was very bittersweet. It was funny. It was sincere. It was emotional. And it's honestly one of the stronger final episodes to a television show I've seen in recent memory, especially for a comedy. And as when the show officially ended, when it cut to the credits and the show was over, I was like, again, like I said in the initial thoughts, I was so glad to have been a part of this journey, to follow these characters and to see them grow and then like give us these wonderful stories that we've been spending the last 5 years following and everything. And like I said, like when it ended, I was like, this is gonna go down as not only one of the best comedies of the 2020s, it will go down as one of the best shows of this entire decade. Like the fact that it was consistently strong from start to finish says a lot. Because again, we have a lot of shows that start off on such a high and then they fizzle out, or vice versa. They start out low and then they just get better and better as they go along. This never lost a beat for me. This was strong from start to finish. And yeah, I'm very, very happy with the way it wrapped up. One thing that we should definitely talk about, though, are the awards prospects, the Emmy prospects. So I think it's safe to say that Jean Smart is winning her fifth Emmy for this. I
I
think it's safe
believe
to
it
say that it's
would.
happening.
I believe it would be a record for someone to win for every season of a show.
Yeah,
So she would make
it's
history.
I I was reading online, and admittedly, and I've said this every time we've done these TV episodes, I don't watch everything on TV. It's very hard for me to keep up to date. I mean, I watch a lot of movies, but even movies can be hard for me to stay up to date with. But I would be absolutely shocked if she doesn't win for this, quite frankly. I would be very surprised. And I do think that Hannah Einbinder is going to win her second consecutive Emmy as well. I think that's happening too. And on top of that, the show is definitely winning Best Comedy Series again. Like it, there's no studio in the way. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing that could take away the awards. I definitely think it's going to win those three Emmys for sure. I could see it winning something in the writing and directing categories. I don't entirely know what episodes are they going to submit. I have no idea what they're going to do with that. But I will say that the show, Gene and Hannah are locks to not only be nominated but to win.
I think that's very safe to say. Yeah, for the series, I think that or the earlier seasons, the Bear beat it, and then Hacks won Best Series once, and then it was the studio last year because that's how it went.
Yep.
Yeah, so I would not be surprised. I mean, I don't think we haven't seen the final season of The Bear yet, but I definitely think that that show has fallen in estimation for the most part.
So
So
the final season of The Bear wouldn't be eligible until next year's
oh, it's
Emmys.
it's playing in different eligibility. Oh, okay. So yeah, then
So
I think
season
it's gonna be
4
fine.
will be what's eligible, and there's no shot that that's
The
beaten.
previous one,
There's
yeah,
no
okay.
way.
Yeah, and I liked season 4 of The Bear, but
I do
I definitely
too.
think that Hacks is way stronger and has that other thing of being perceived as much more of a comedy than The Bear is. So, yeah, unless there's something else that is that we're not thinking of or that's going to come out of nowhere or something. Yeah, I definitely think that this is the strongest one with the highest profile. It's the final season of something that has been so beloved and so consistent. So, yeah, I'm definitely excited for this to pretty much dominate for award season, hopefully.
Yeah, I guess if there is competition in comedy, I I guess the main competitor would probably be Shrinking, maybe, which I love that show. I know you haven't watched it. And I would be very happy if that were to win, but I think that that has a stronger shot of winning in the other categories. But Hacks is far and away, I think, the one to take this. I mean, it was pretty much locked and loaded when the season began. I'm like, yeah, this is absolutely winning. And the Emmys do love rewarding shows for their final seasons most of the time, except for Better Call Saul, unfortunately, but that's a
Mm,
different discussion for another time.
It's,
Um,
it's robbed.
right, you know,
No Emmys at all. It's whole run, I think, right?
no Emmys at all. It's whole run. I've lost
Travesty.
respect for the I lost respect for the Emmys because of that. Like you should if you weren't going to give it best series in its final season, okay, whatever, but you should have at least given Rhea Sehorn the Emmy over. I'm sorry that Rhea Sehorn didn't jump off a boat and say the gays are trying to kill me. Like I'm sorry that that didn't happen. And from there I've had a vendetta against Jennifer Coolidge, who I love, but she stole Rhea Sehorn's Emmy, although Rhea Sehorn, thankfully, will be winning Best
I think
Actress
she's
in a
coming for
Drama
it this year.
Series.
Yeah.
So there will be that, but I'm going to pretend that that's for Better Call Saul. Anyway, I think the show's going to do very well at the Emmys. Like, this show always performs very well. I don't know how much it's going to win in the long run, but like I said, those 3 awards that I mentioned, I feel like it's absolutely taken away all 3 of those.
For sure. Yeah, I would think so.
I'm sad that this show's over.
Yeah.
It feels weird that it's over.
And
It's
it
crazy.
was such a consistent show, like coming back, I think pretty much every year since it began. Which,
Yeah.
we talk about now things like Severance and the Game of Thrones shows that like just take so long in between seasons. But this was just like a consistent every springtime, like it would just roll around and yeah, next
Yeah,
spring we
the
won't have
only
it.
year that we didn't have a season of Hacks was 2023.
Hmm.
It's the only year we didn't have it. Like 2021, 2022, they were in quick succession. Then we had the 2 year gap. And then they came back every year around the same time, never missed a beat. And yeah, I'm sad. I'm sad that it's over. But I can't say that I'm sad that the other show we're talking about is over.
Before we do that, what do you think is your favorite season of Hacks?
Um, you know, see, I've only seen each season once, so it's
Yeah,
like,
me too,
it's hard for
probably.
me to pinpoint a favorite season.
I
I
think
think,
I give the edge to 2 for me, which is like when they were on the road because I really
mhm,
enjoyed like that dynamic of just being in a different place all the time and like them like really working on the set. Like I feel like that's when you got to hear a lot of the like
yeah,
joke writing and stuff and like working out
mhm.
what Deborah's voice is influenced by Ava. Like I just really enjoyed all that stuff.
I think I'm gonna say season 4 because as someone who loves late night TV and how that was like a big prevalent element of that season and everything, I really love that. I also do want to briefly mention the whole like, oh, when Ava at the end of the finale is like, "What am I gonna do without you?" and she's like, "You're a big brave girl," and that was a nod to I think the end of season 3, beginning of season 4, where Ava took place as the head writer of the show when Deborah didn't want her to, and then yeah, I really loved that whole full circle moment.
Hmm.
God, yeah, this show is. It was a real treat to get to watch this show live, and there simply won't be anything like it. And I'm excited to see what everybody involved does going next. I mean, Jean Smart, she's been a legend for many years, and she'll continue to be a legend till the end of time. Hannah Einbinder, I'm so excited to see, like, now that she's done with the show, now she's going to branch out and do a lot of wonderful things. Literally, when we're recording this, I just watched Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, and she is so fucking incredible in that movie. And oh my God, I'm so excited. And then whatever the three creators do next, just give me all that. Also, Paul W.S. Downs saying that he works with women because women are the best. Amen, brother.
Because they're funnier.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amen, brother. All right. Do we talk about the other show?
Unfortunately, yeah. I think now we move on to Euphoria Season 3. What a journey this has been. It's wild that up until a few days ago, we didn't even know if this was a season finale or a series finale. Thank goodness it's been announced. This is the end of the series. But yeah, we have to talk about it before officially saying goodbye. So Bryan, where do you stand on Euphoria? How its third and final season fares for you? How did you feel about it going into it? All of that.
I can't believe that this show's been around for 7 years. That's the first thing that I want to get off the chest, because I remember when
Yeah,
the show
opposite of
was
Hacks.
like,
3 seasons in 7 years.
and how many episodes did they? It was like what, 26 episodes?
Something like that. Yeah.
Euphoria had. That's 3 seasons, 26 episodes over 7 years. That's absolutely nuts to me. That it just makes zero sense. So I remember when this show premiered. I remember like seeing an ad for it at some point one night. I think I was watching. Okay, I remember. It was when the final season of Game of Thrones premiered in early 2019. And I saw this commercial for the show with Zendaya. And I'm like, is that Zendaya doing drugs? Like, what? That's our Disney girl. Why is she doing this? But hey, all power to her. So immediately I was like, well, I'm going to watch it because I like her. And I'm very interested. Season 1, I started a bit of it. I watched maybe the first 3 episodes, and then I fell off because sometimes it's really hard for me to get into TV. And then I didn't go back to it until the pandemic. And I stand by saying that season 1 is a really fucking good season of TV. I said that back then. I still stand by that. There are problems with it. Obviously, it's not perfect. But compared to where the show eventually went, it's pretty great in comparison. I liked the whole approach of it being a very psychological teen drama, tackling topics that we never really saw in a lot of teen dramas outside of maybe the show Skins that aired a decade prior and everything. So I was really fascinated with that approach, and I was really impressed with that. Then we get those specials, which I also stand by saying that those specials are unbelievably great. And I actually rewatched those specials a few weeks ago just for the hell of it, and I forgot how great they are. They're so good. Season 2 came out 3 years after season 1, and it was not great, but I was entertained. There were a lot of moments in it that I actually really enjoyed, but there were also a lot of moments that made me roll my eyes. I'm like, oh, God, this show is becoming a huge mess, but I'm still very invested in it. And now we're finally here 4 years later, which is I don't even like there was so much doubt that this was even going to come out and everything. Like a lot of people were like, oh, there's no way they're doing season 3 of Euphoria because every actor has very busy careers outside the show. The strikes happened. Angus Cloud died. Everyone else kept getting busy. Sam Levinson was being panned as he should be. And yet they made it. And now it's here. And now we talk about it. And here's the thing. This was ass. This was so bad. And I'm not even going to sugarcoat it at all. Because I didn't expect this season to be anything great. But what I wanted from this season was to be entertained. Even if it was so bad that it's good, I wanted to enjoy myself for the last 8 weeks watching it. This was an absolute chore to sit through. It was a slog. It went through the most tonally confusing crisis that I've seen in a show in recent memory. Everybody looked like they were phoning it in. The filmmaking was very well done. But that's all I can really say about it. This season just had a huge amalgamation of ideas that ultimately went nowhere. It it just did not sit well with me at all. And as the season was progressing, I'm like, there's no way that there's going to be more Euphoria after this. I just refuse to believe that anyone is going to want to partake. But then we found out it's the last season, and thank God. Now, there are some redeeming qualities, but there's not enough of them. As I said, the filmmaking of it, the directing, visually, is great. That's the one thing that I would commend Sam Levinson for. Because when it comes to directing actors, it's not his strongest suit. And the biggest sin is 1000% his writing. Because, oh my God, what the fuck? Truly, what the fuck were we doing here? Nothing felt earned. This was a mess. This was a slog to get through. I hated this season. There were elements of it that I certainly appreciate, but ultimately, massive, massive, massive step down from the season that we just talked about minutes ago. And it's also a humongous step down from what I feel was a very promising start to a show that really should have been one of the best of the last few years. And we didn't even get that. So I'm rambling on and on because I don't even know what to say, quite frankly, because this entire season pissed me off. So, what is your relationship to Euphoria? What were your expectations going into this season? And how did you feel about it overall as a new season to the show, but then also as the final season of the show?
I think I feel very similarly to you. So I didn't watch the first season like as it aired live. I think I caught up with it like during the pandemic. Watched that first season all together and really liked it. Wasn't my favorite show or anything, but I was like, yeah, really, really solid, really good. When those Ruined Jewels specials came out, I was like, love this. This is, just like each of them, just two people having a conversation, a bunch of dialogue and, grappling with larger things going on in the show, but also larger things. And I was like, if we could mix that all together, like that's, even better. And then the second season, I will say, I think that I was probably lower on it than most people. I know that it was like, not the most well reviewed season or anything, but I feel like the like prevailing opinion about it was like, yeah, it was a little crazy and stupid, but like I was having fun, I was entertained. I struggle with that with a TV show if I don't feel like, there's any larger like direction, if I don't feel like it's working towards something thematically or the characters don't make sense or something. I have trouble just like enjoying one scene in isolation and being like, yeah, but that's a really good scene. I'm like, to what end? Like it just doesn't, I need to have
At what cost?
yeah. As Maya Rudolph would say, to what end? So that's how I feel about all of Euphoria, like to what end? So season 2, I was definitely like, I mean, I watched the whole thing, but it was more of like, I'm just, watching a car crash here. And like, it was, a similar show to what happened in season 1, but it just felt like, it felt so much more indulgent. It felt like really melodramatic, but like a melodramatic like teen show, but also like very pretentious and very, trying to like reach for these grander things that I just think it was so far off from. So yeah, I watched season 2 very skeptical about it, very much like I don't think this is for me, but it's I'm invested now. I might as well see how it plays out. So like to be fair, going into season 3, my expectations were on the floor. Like I was not, besides just not enjoying the second season, the fact that it's been 4 years, the fact that most of this cast has moved on to bigger and better things that I would much prefer them seeing doing that instead of doing this. So, I was already just sort of like resenting it being back. Like you gotta, shekel Zendaya and Jacob Elordi and all these talented actors to this project that just I also in between we should say The Idol happened, which was Sam Levinson's other show, which
Oh my
for some
God.
fucking reason I watched that whole thing, even though I
Oh,
didn't like a second of it.
you deserve
but
a Medal of Honor for that. My God.
I think most people
I
gave
shut
up
it off
halfway
after
through.
10 minutes.
I just watched it. I don't know. I hate myself, but so yeah, I guess that influenced my decision going into this too, because I was like, okay, I've seen him in a different set of characters now, and I did not like what I saw. So yeah, I definitely was going into this like, again, I'm just kind of here to watch the car crash. Like I just kind of am morbidly curious to see what happens to these characters that I at one point had some sort of opinion on and care for and everything. So. This final season, this third season, I'm like, I try to be measured on this podcast. I don't crash out. I'm like, hey, this didn't work for me, but it might work for someone else. I have nothing fucking nice to say about this season of TV. I thought it was horrific. It was so bad. And I will say that, like, TV and filmmaking, they're collaborative mediums. There are so many people that, like, contribute to the final product. But, like, that being said, I mean, Sam Levinson is created the show and he wrote and directed every single episode this season. So, like, I am blaming that man, like, single-handedly pretty much. And I mean, I don't think that HBO really, interfered much. Like, I'm sure he got to make the show he meant to make, and I'm like, why the fuck was this your decision at any given turn? So, I hated it. I do think that there's good filmmaking. There's also very, like, flashy filmmaking that just is, like, bringing attention to itself, which even if it wasn't a larger story that I, like, gave a shit about at this point, I would, like, there are some moments when I think it works and some when it doesn't. And from a few of the actors, I think that there are some genuinely great performances. Zendaya, mostly. She manages to still, like, absolutely bring heart and groundedness and to Rue, when I think that Rue was very poorly served throughout this whole season. But she's a great actress who is really locked into something with this character. We'll get into it more, but, like, the Coleman Domingo performance in the last 2 episodes is incredible because he's an amazing actor. So, like, there were some actors were able to, like, shine through a little bit, but the moments of good filmmaking or the performances that are good, like, it almost, like, highlights how much anything that I used to like or care about in Euphoria has just been butchered. And it's like, you're using it to what end? Again, to what end? That is how I feel about this whole fucking season.
So we clearly have a lot of nasty things to say about it, and, like, yeah, we touched upon a few highlights. I kind of want to just, before we get into the negativity, let's go back to the positivity just for a
Sure.
bit and
I'll
everything.
try.
I will add on to what you said about Zendaya. She really is. She is doing the Lord's work in this by working with this horrific dialogue and this writing and Sam Levinson's hackish directing and everything, and she's giving it her all. But also, at this rate, we all know that Zendaya can do the goods. She can deliver the goods, even if the material that she's given is god awful. And what they did with Rue this season was a complete joke, as was a lot of the decisions made with this season. But she made you somewhat invested in the arc. When Rue was scared, I was scared because Zendaya was able to invoke that scaredness. When Rue was happy, I was happy because Zendaya invoked that well. When Rue was sad, again, Zendaya was able to depict that all very, very well. And my guy, my king, Coma Domingo, wow. Quite frankly, we talked about Emmy prospects with hacks and everything, and maybe we'll touch upon it, but I'm just going to say right now, Coma Domingo is winning a second Emmy for this. I would be absolutely shocked if he doesn't at least get nominated for this, but he's another actor that, when given bad material, he could do the best with that material. I talked so harshly about Michael a few months back and how, like, he tried his best with the terrible dialogue and the horrific makeup work, but he still managed to give it his all, and here he is exceptional. And I do stand by the filmmaking being mostly good. Like you said, there were some very flashy decisions made just to, like, come off as, oh, look at me, I'm so cool and everything. And you could tell that, like, Sam Levinson is trying to evoke this very pretentious, film bro-y vibe to it and everything, and go off the fact that he's a Nepo baby and his dad is an Oscar winner and he's made all these movies and everything and got him all this money and everything. And it's just like, there are certain sequences that worked for me and there are certain moments that worked for me, but it's just like, it's sad too because you could tell that there are some people on the show that were genuinely trying, to make the best with the material that they were given, and even they couldn't save it. But Zendaya and Coma Domingo, I would say, are far and away the true saving graces about this season.
For sure, yeah. So we can get into spoilers from here on out for the final season. But you mentioned Rue as a character and Zendaya's performance and everything. But like if we can just get into her journey a bit throughout this season, I just think that it was like almost we're spoiling now. She dies at the end of a fentanyl overdose that was given to her by Alamo, her boss for this season and everything. I just think it was so fucking insulting for everything to circle back to addiction like that. Which as I was clocking throughout the season, I was like, Rue is not like this is like barely the Rue that we knew before. She is like addiction was her primary storyline. It was she was dealing with substance abuse, but then even we would see in other moments throughout the show when if she was doing well and staying sober a bit, she's almost like shifted that addiction to her addiction to Jules and being in that relationship, and like that the way that she has that sort of addictive explosive personality. And it's something that we see that she has a good heart, but it's unmanageable at times. It ruins her life at times, and all of that we've seen this character go through. And for like most of the season, she's just kind of like bopping along. She's just, she's dealing with these increasingly heightened, ridiculous, outsized crime gang war thing that it was so so ridiculous. I can't even get into yet, but just the idea that like this was not the same character we knew. She was not dealing with any of the stuff that we've seen her deal with. And it was like, listening to there was, the inside the episode after the episodes air, and like hearing Sam Levinson talk about it there or in other interviews, and he says, things like, it's just the hard truth that like people like Rue don't make it. And it's like Rue hasn't even been Rue this whole season. Like this was not some grounded, gritty depiction of addiction and its foibles and everything. She didn't simply OD or relapse. She was like assassinated by a cowboy kingpin because she was caught up with his gang and the DEA and a bunch of Nazis. Like this is not, I don't think many addicts can relate to that. I don't think that you're not telling the story you thought you were telling. And it's like so like crude to have her addiction just not be an issue in the entire season because it wouldn't be convenient, because she has all this other plot machinations to go through. So like, we couldn't have her also dealing with that at the same time. But then you bring it back in the last moment to kill her 40 minutes into an hour and a half finale, and then we get to see two other, male characters have this fucking shootout over her for her like honor or something. Like I hated everything about how like we said, Zendaya got to shine through because she has these super intense moments. And you said you felt for her, like you were feeling what she was feeling in that moments. I was really finding it hard to emotionally connect to or invest in anything in the show this season. I was more like, from an objective sense, being like, wow, look at what Zendaya is doing. I was not like, oh no, Rue, because it just didn't even feel like the same character. It just felt like she was just this pawn to be moved around the chess piece to do these increasingly ridiculous things, and I just wasn't invested even as Zendaya was acting her heart out.
That's totally valid, and yeah, like I mean, not to jump ahead to the finale and everything, but I do completely agree with the way they handled Rue and her death and everything. And so I was watching the finale live, and at this rate, like there was no announcement that this was the final episode of the entire show and everything. When that happened, I'm like, okay, there's no way that this show is continuing. Like, there's no way. Like, and I thought, and I didn't look at like how much time there was left or anything. Like, I didn't look at my phone. Like, I wasn't on my phone or anything during the finale. I had it in the other room, so I had no idea what time it was and everything. So, like, when I realized the episode kept going and then I had to pause it because I needed some water, I'm like, oh my God, there's still another like 50 minutes left of this episode. What do you need to spend like 25 minutes wrapping up every fucking character's arc? Like what? So like you brought up of how like Rue was very different from the Rue that we had seen in the previous two seasons and everything. This entire season was very different from the first two seasons, like because the first two seasons were very much like these teen dramas, these psychological teen dramas. And listen, I am glad that they didn't play high scores in this season. They did the right thing. If there's one thing to give Sam Levinson credit for, the whole decision to do a time jump, that was obviously the thing you had to do with this season, considering that it had been 4 fucking years since the show was last on the air. And these people are nearing or are already over 30. You can't have them play high school. Don't do the Glee effect. You can't do that with another season and everything. It was fine at first with season 1, season 2, whatever, but season 3, no, you had to jump ahead and do something. And it's smart that they did that, but like tonally, it is such inconsistent from the first 2 seasons and everything. And listen, I am all for the idea of doing something different to give it a different style and everything, but make it feel earned. Give us a reason to care and feel compelled by what's happening on screen. And even though I said, yeah, I didn't necessarily care about Rue, but like because Zendaya is such a good actress, I'm just like, if any other actor was playing this role, I probably would be very annoyed, like even more annoyed than I already was. But when it came to that whole change and everything, I just felt like it was so unearned and at least find a way of making it engrossing. And they couldn't even do that. It was just one tonal mess. And yeah, again, not to jump ahead to the finale and everything, but like the first half of the finale, Rue is pretty much front and center, and then she fucking dies, and then the rest of the episode deals with the aftermath and everything, and then we get the shootout, and I'm like, are we watching a Quentin fucking Tarantino movie? This is literally the show that started off like 7 years ago with like what it started off with in the first season. We've really come a long way from that first season, and not in the good way, let me tell you that. Like, what the hell were they thinking by doing this for this final season? But this final episode, especially, oh my God. Why couldn't they just do something that made it feel consistent and everything? Or in the long run, why'd they even make this season in the first place? Nobody clearly wanted to be there. Everybody was phoning it in. Nobody has fucking promoted it except for Sydney Sweeney, because what else does she have to do with her life? And everything just jumbled, mess, incoherent. Those are the perfect words to describe this entire season because, like, it just became a Western and it didn't mesh well at all.
No, it was. I think it was going for provocation above all else. But the thing is, when you're just aiming for that, and it's not based on anything or grounded in any characters or anything, it's like it just becomes, you become numb to it. It becomes. You said before, like you were, bored throughout a lot of the season. I think that I've seen some people like review the season or talk about it as it's going on and be like, yeah, it's a mess, but like I'm never bored. And I'm like, I was pretty fucking bored, like because
I have a coworker who's literally like that. She's like, I'm entertained and everything, and I like that it's different. And I'm like, and she literally was like, "You just don't like change," and I'm like, "No, I love change if it earns that change, and this did not earn that at all."
Yeah, and I definitely I don't have any gripes with doing the time jump. Like you said, I think that makes total sense. And like the first 2 seasons, as much as like people talk about it like a high school show, like the fact that they were in high school was almost like incidental. Like they were, for all intents and purposes, acting like adults pretty much. And that's actually one of the things that even in like the first season, which I think is, much better quality and everything, I did sort of like I didn't love that about the show. It just kind of felt like this is so like the, the quote unquote Gen Z show. I was like, I don't think this has anything to say about Gen Z or like what modern teenagers and young adults are going through. Like it's a, 30-something, 40-something year old man's conception of what high schoolers do, or maybe what he did in high school. But like life isn't like that anymore. Like I don't, you and me, Brian, I don't know about you in Woodbridge High School walking the halls, but like I don't think people were like, doing hard drugs all the time and never going to class, like all that stuff. And it's a TV show,
I sure
obviously.
hope not.
Maybe once or twice, but no, I'm like it never really spoke to me on that level of like, oh, this is really about like young people. Like it was a prestige drama show, mostly dealing with addiction and with complex relationships like that and identity and stuff. So I wasn't like, oh, you take them out of high school and this is just like this is too much change or anything. Like I was fine with taking it out of a high school. That's fine. But you need to make it about something. And, going to Rue's storyline and everything, I think a lot of other people were like, yeah, everything's like, stuff that's going on with Cassie and Nate is a mess and Jules is barely in it. But like, at least Rue like is in this super exciting, crime storyline. Like she's in like, Breaking Bad right now. And I was like, I hated pretty much everything that happened with both crime gangs all together. Like I am not an expert on drug dealing and crime and all that stuff, but I have watched TV. I have watched The Sopranos. I've watched Breaking Bad. I have watched The Wire. Like, judging on some of the stuff that I've learned from that, like, none of this functioned credibly at all. Like, there were moments when Lori, like, as like a checkmate to Alamo, is like, well, if you don't work with us, we'll just take the stuff we have and turn it into the DEA. And he's like, oh, you got me there. That is not how, like, that's not how any of this works. Like, that is, you don't just threaten to, like, work with the feds when you're running a crime operation yourself. Like, that is so not, like, just things like that I was like, all of the back and forth there of, we're going to meet face to face a bunch of times and have all these showdowns and standoffs, except no one's going to, like, attempt to kill anyone or, like, settle this. Like, it was so back and forth, and I was like, I think some people are responding well to Alamo as a character. I think it's a good performance, but that character just made absolutely no sense to me. He was just there to be, like, intimidating and just kind of like a trope performance of, a black crime boss. Like, I think it played into that way too much. We can get into some of the more details and stuff, but, like, and then you have the Nazis that we spent way too much fucking time with. I don't care about any of those people, and so much of the finale had to do with, the raid on their compound and everything. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, there is nothing, and again, that's like Rue's storyline mainly took place with those people, and I'm like, I don't care about how she's interacting with any of these people. Like, it was just confounding to me. I don't understand why we had to do any of that.
Again, like, not to be a broken record, but just nothing in this season made any lick of sense. Like, all the decisions that were made here, just like, my whole thing with Euphoria has always been like, if Sam Levinson just had anyone else right, maybe we would have gotten something a bit more coherent. But because he had to, like, milk everything himself and like sprinkle all of his desires and yearnings across the board, it's just like it was just a very grotesque watch. It was disgusting. There was a lot of stupid decisions that made me roll my eyes. And, like, let's just talk also about how there were just, and this isn't just with this season, it's with the whole show itself, but particularly this season, there were a lot of moments that genuinely grossed me out. Like, early on in the season when they're, like, shoving drugs down their throats, that was so unnecessary. Like, we spent like 5 minutes on that moment. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this? This was a show that was about high schoolers that were doing, high school things, and now they're shoving drugs down their throat. What? Again, why?
Yeah, and like, there's a moment in the earlier season when Cassie and Maddie reunite and stuff, and she says something about, like, yeah, like, I'm hot and pretty, like, I could, make it as an OnlyFans model and stuff, and she's like, you need to have taste, and she was like, well, I have that, I think. That was so on the nose to me, because I was like, that is what Sam Levinson is missing here. Like, there is no taste. I have absolutely no problem with, intense depictions of sex, of violence. Like, those are things that exist in this world. They can be a powerful cinematic tool. Like, no issue there. But, like, there's just there's no restraint. There's no, like, amount of it. You think of, okay, this is a Cassie is a young hot girl who wants to do OnlyFans, and, like, everything plays out as you would imagine. Like, they're gonna just push it to the most, like, extreme, thought of it, and it's just so, and it makes me think of it because, again, like I said, I feel like this is maybe not by people themselves, but, like, to people who write and talk about the show, I feel like this is like, oh, it's the Gen Z show, and it's had influence on fashion and trends and stuff like that. But to me, again, it just doesn't represent anything about what young people could be going through these days. Like, I know I'm a zillennial. I'm on the cusp here. Maybe I'm out of turn speaking for my younger Gen Z friends, but, like, there is such a prevailing attitude now about, like, depictions of sex in movies and TV are bad, or it's always, like, this perverted thing, and I'm like, I totally disagree with that. I think that's a powerful part of life, and it should be, everyone should be safe on set while depicting it, but, like, it's an important thing that people experience, and there's nothing, wrong with it in the right context, like, all of that stuff. But I'm like, this is what people should be having a problem with. Like, these are depictions that are just clearly so, like, so gratuitous. It is so, like, it's in your face. It's not based in real people. It is so focused on, like, body parts and disconnecting that from the people. It is so, like, in the male psyche. Just the way that the fucking monologue from Alamo in the finale about how his life was changed, he had an epiphany by looking into Kitty's pussy. Like, I'm like, come the fuck on. Like, this is, like, it's a parody of people who think that, like, sex and violence are too intense on TV or movies. Like, it's it's taking everything so to the extreme that it's not even resembling anything real anymore. And those are topics that you can depict in a myriad of ways that can work and can be powerful and all of that stuff. And it's just, it misses the mark, like, on every conceivable. Anytime you're like, okay, well, they're not going to go this far, they go that far, and then they go farther and farther and farther, and it's like, well, what the fuck? Like, it is just so, just, and again, it's numbing to that effect. Like, I hate it.
This whole season, I mean, you brought up the word parody. This season felt like a parody of everything that we had gotten prior, and like how the show initially didn't try to be what it ended up becoming. And yeah, all of the blame is to be placed on Sam Levinson, because you look at season one. I believe he wrote all of season one, but he didn't direct every episode of season one. But also, I know that he had some writers, but then he had full creative control for seasons 2 and 3. You brought up that you weren't a fan of season 2 at all, and that's totally understandable. Season 2 didn't wow everybody.
It's much better than this, but yeah.
It was so much better than this. And at least with season 2, like you kind of understood what was going on and everything. You understood what was happening and what it was leading up to. Throughout this entire season, I'm like, what are we building up to? What exactly are we doing? And like you said, all these different storylines with the crime bosses and the Nazis, and then it's like, how does this fit into Euphoria? Like, at what rate, like, why are we still calling the show Euphoria? If yes, it has the same character names and everything, but it's like, this is just not the show that it started out to be years ago and everything. And let's just talk about some other characters. We brought up Rue, we brought up other characters, but oh my God, can we just talk about how, like, they really butchered, I mean, they butchered every character, but Nate Jacobs, what the fuck? Poor Jacob Elordi, who you could just see that he is phoning it in. Some actors are really good at hiding when they phone it in. And I'm not saying like, oh, Jacob Elordi can never phone it in, but you could just tell so badly that he did not want to be there. And how could you blame him? Look at the career that this guy has had outside of Euphoria, doing all these incredible performances. He was on a TV show where he like lost all this weight. I don't remember the name of it. I'm so sorry. But it was a very acclaimed and celebrated series where he played a soldier. And then he's done all these movies with Priscilla and Saltburn. And look at the fact that he just got nominated for a fucking Oscar. Yes, they shot this before that happened, but you could just tell, like, he was so ready to just leave this whole thing behind and everything. As were a lot of people. Maud Apatow, you could tell, didn't want to be there. Hunter Schafer, Jules was such a highlight for me when the show began. Barely there, just being a sugar mama, painting in her apartment, and then having sex with men. Okay, whatever. But the only person that clearly seemed like they wanted to be there was Sydney Sweeney. And Sydney Sweeney, I hate to say it, but I'm going to repeat what a lot of people say. She sucks. She actually, like, really is not that good of an actor. And when she started out years ago, I was actually really impressed by her as an actor. And I kind of liked what she brought in the first 2 seasons, especially the second season where she had a lot more material to work with. And then outside of that, she had done a bunch of various projects. Like, she was great on White Lotus, I thought. She did that movie Reality about Reality Winner, and I thought she was unbelievable in that. Mm-hmm. But then, other than that, she stinks. And then this, God, Cassie, oh my God, like, maybe the worst written character on the show. I don't know. Everyone is pretty badly written, so I don't think there's a broad answer, but Nate Jacobs, I hate what they did with him, truly. All he did was bitch and whine the whole time and run away from these mobsters and everything, and then he got his toe cut off and his finger cut off, and then he got buried alive, and I fucking hated that snake sequence. I hated the way he went out. That was absolutely asinine. just like it just kept going and going and going, and I'm like, please fucking stop. Like, as someone who hates snakes, of course I was uncomfortable in that moment, but also I was just like, how did we even get here? Like, that's a big question throughout this entire season. How the fuck did we get here? So I'm disappointed what they did with Nate, because I liked Nate in the first 2 seasons, despite him being a very complicated and very complex character. But here, he was just a whiny little bitch, and I didn't like that at all. But God, I don't know what to say.
I think, it's a valid criticism to say of the across the whole cast that these characters are so different from what we knew, and like they don't resemble like the characters we started off with at all. But I think that applies to no one more than Nate. Like, where was like, did he have a lobotomy in between seasons? Like, why was he just a completely different person? And the first 2 seasons, I mean, he is complex, I guess, but he's just like a straight up psychopath as well. And it's like none of that was really present. And I do kind of feel like Jacob Elordi gave one of the worst performances, but I almost feel like he did it on purpose. Like, I could feel his eyes coming through the screen. Like, I don't want to be here. I'm not condoning any of this. I don't know. I have no idea how involved or any say that he had in like how much Nate was in the season. Cause I mean, he was also, not a very big presence. He would show up usually not with any other team partners. Like, he, was with Cassie in the beginning of the season, but then, a couple scenes in the wedding here and there, but for the most part, he's on his own getting mutilated for, I don't know. I just get the sense that he was like, just give me the bare minimum and let me get the fuck out of here. So yeah, it was just,
Yeah, he's like, I just worked with Guillermo del Toro, given the performance of a lifetime, and now I have to go back to this slop of a show.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, everything with Cassie and Nate, once again, I'm like, based on the extensive TV shows I have watched, I don't think this is how crime works. I think that if Cassie was in a position to be paying Nate and, when she was making money again, why do they just keep coming and hacking off his body parts? And why do they, I mean, I know they didn't intentionally full on kill him, but why do you bury him in the ground when like he now has the money to pay you back? And why didn't they sell their house? Like, all these just ridiculous things that I was like, and again, none of that is
because then that would be smart, and Sam Levinson is not smart, as we've alluded to many times.
And I'm like, I can forgive like little logic issues and stuff like that. Like, I don't want to like cinema sins everything, but it's not in service of anything. Like, Nate was this controlling psychopath, and like, he has an issue with his new wife doing OnlyFans for like half an episode, and then he just like gets over it, and he's like, all right, you go in and bring home the bacon, honey. Like, where was like, I'm like, what? Like, why was he? That's just a different person. There's nothing interesting about that person. He's just sitting at home and waiting for his wife to pay him, or waiting for a gangster to come and rip his toe off. Like, okay, what? I felt nothing when he died. I was like, okay, sure, yeah, he wasn't doing anything else, so what the fuck? Why not? Yeah, that's how I feel about Nate. And then you branch out a little bit to the other characters. I think that this is also a recurring thing across the cast of characters, but I feel like for Lexi and for Jules in particular, there was that moment when Lexi asks Jules to collaborate on the painting for her to be featured in her TV show. And I'm like, why are you making these people stupid? Like, just like, they are just no common sense. They were born yesterday. Why would Lexi task her with this without giving any clearer parameters? Why would Jules interpret the parameters that way? Why are the showrunners here like weird about giving her this feedback? And like, it's all like, and Jules, like, besides barely being in this season, like we said, she is so reduced to like her identity as a trans person in like really unfortunate, weird ways. Like the in that moment with the painting, Lexi is like, they're giving the feedback, and Lexi's like, well, she's trans, and it's like, so that means she has to like be dense and paint a painting with a bunch of dicks on it for a network TV show. Like, what are you talking about? Like, why is that a mess? And then with her sugar daddy, it's like kind of all about that. It's kind of all about how he's fetishizing her as a trans woman. And it's like, she used to be such a more developed character, and like that was an aspect, but she had all this other stuff going on, good and bad and everything in between. And like, she is just literally a hood ornament. Like, she's just for decoration this whole season, and not in a smart way, not in a way that's like satire of how she actually feels. Like it just seems like, yeah, that's what she is, and that's, no comment. Again, like it just goes for the most obvious sort of storyline or the most obvious development, and it never deepens her anything beyond. Even after Rue fucking dies, we get one thing of her painting a portrait to her, and that's it. Like that was the central relationship of the show, and it's just gone. And then yeah, Lexi also looks stupid and ridiculous throughout most of this season. What was she was literally just there to like scold other characters and be a plot device, to get Jules into it and then to get Cassie into the show later, like just purely there for that. And she's like, she was never the center of the show, but like she was always a fun side character and she'd fit in for with everybody else. Like this is just like, okay, she's just, a plot device now, and that's about it. And yeah, so I just feel like them and also with Rue at times, like there were just moments where I'm like, you have to just rely on this character being like dumb as fucking rocks in order for any of this to work, and that's just what they go with. That's what he chose. So whatever.
I really cannot believe how they just tarnish the character of Jules throughout this entire show, because Hunter Schafer is so unbelievably talented, and she was so good in season 1, and then her special episode that she co-wrote,
Mm-hmm.
that's the best episode of the entire show. That's the best piece of Euphoria still to this day for me. And in season 2, where she essentially just became sidelined, I was like, oh, maybe they'll give her more to do next time. They gave her nothing to do. And I agree with everything about Lexi. And then there was that whole unnecessary storyline. It's like, oh, we're just going to randomly bring in Sharon Stone to play this studio executive. And it's like, you could have done something really fun with that and you didn't. And then like, it's interesting too, because like they added on a lot of really cool actors for this new season and everything. I mean, the actor who played Almo, I really liked him a lot, but yeah, the character was poorly written. Marshawn Lynch was just playing Marshawn Lynch, which to me is never a diss at all, because I loved him in Bottoms, and I'm like, you know what? If you keep doing that performance and everything you're in, fine, be my guest. But of course, like that was a poorly written character. Poor Danielle Deadweiler. Like, why would you agree to sign on to this? You're like one of our best working actors, and you're already on a very successful, celebrated show on HBO. You really had to do another one on top of that? Like, what? Poor Danielle Deadweiler. Just seeing her like in this, I'm just like, girl, my heart breaks for you.
That one pissed me off so much. And yeah, because like you said, she's a wildly talented actress. Like she's one of the best we have working right now. And yeah, she gets a little bit of a showcase. Like, like Zendaya, she gets moments where I'm like, wow, that's a great actress. But the way that flashback functions in the show as Alamo's backstory was again another example of his character being like this collection of tropes and the fact that we're getting his childhood, and he's like got this nice father figure, but look at that, his mom is goes and screws him over for some money and stuff. And it was like at this point, and this is, I don't know, later in the season, but I'm like, oh, okay, I see Sam Levinson. Like not only are women whores, but they can also be gold digging bitches. Like that is literally the range of like characterization that we have here. And it's not even coming from like a representation issue. Like I'm not looking at Euphoria for like a positive female representation, but it's like you literally don't have any imagination of who women are or how they can function in the world beyond that, and vice versa. You're using that to characterize Alamo, and like, okay, that's just who he is. He's just this shell of a man who is ruled by these evil women who control him with their fucking pussies. Like that is where we are at with this man, and the way that it functions, where we get that whole flashback as he's rushing toward Rue buried in the ground on horseback, and it's like the whole conclusion of that big flashback is like something like Alamo knew from that day on he wouldn't let a bitch get one over on him, and it's like, okay, the most pat conclusion you could take from that, but then the conclusion should be, so then he's gonna fucking kill Rue, I guess, because he's not gonna let a bitch get one over on him, and then he doesn't. And it's just like, what are, like, none of this means anything. Like, this is just not, you're not telling a story. This is not, like, coherent storytelling. Like, none of the, you're not doing anything here. You're just putting a series of images and words on the screen and, like, expecting them to all gel together because it's, like, an amalgamation of a bunch of other, like, better things.
And I can't believe HBO was like, sure, we'll release this to the public. This should have been buried in a fucking vault.
It's literally embarrassing. Yeah, it's like, it's, again, not just that I didn't enjoy it, not just that, like, oh, it doesn't work. Like, it's incoherent. It's just such a mess.
And, like, again, like, if you're going to make something that's intentionally messy, just make me entertained, make me care, and I couldn't give a single fuck about anything that was happening in this season. And we have to go back to talking about the finale because we talked about what they did with Rue and everything. Let's just please vent about the shootout sequence. Listen, Coleman Domingo acted around everybody in that entire sequence because he's Coleman fucking Domingo and he could do anything that he wants and he could kill it with anything that he does. That character of Ali never would have pictured him doing anything like that at all. So for him to come into that bar in the military uniform and then a shootout ensues, I'm like, again, how? Like, there was no indicator at all that Ali would ever be this kind of character. And then he's doing this and it's like, okay, like, I get it. You're on this revenge quest to defeat the guy who ultimately killed Rue and everything. But it's like, is that really your place to do that, first of all? And second of all, it's so stupid. Like, I felt like I was watching a Tarantino parody. And I like Tarantino. And we all know that everybody likes to parody Tarantino and everything. But, like, this just made no sense with anything. As we've said numerous times, nothing about this season made any sort of sense. And this moment, I was just like, this is how we're wrapping up the whole show? With a shootout? That's not even with the main character?
Yeah.
Like, what?
I knew we were in trouble. I mean, obviously we've been in trouble this whole fucking season, but even before the shootout, we were in trouble when Ali is in, you know, his Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and he's giving that monologue. Again, wonderfully performed by Coleman Domingo. No knock on him. But that monologue is, like, serving as, number one, as, like, a PSA about fentanyl and how it's, you know, uniquely in American drugs and the system there. And I'm like, okay, it's, you know, it's kind of inartful writing, but, like, fine, you wanna, I don't mind having, like, an explicit message in the writing, like, whatever. But it goes from that into this weird fucking diatribe where, you know, this character who has been, like, the most thoughtful throughout the whole series, he's spiritual and he's like, you know, he's so enlightened. He's dealt with all these things like really gracefully and non-gracefully, like all of this stuff. The way he starts talking about, like, I was wrong, that it was about having empathy. There's actually just right and wrong, and there's good and evil, and, like, this shit's actually simple. If you sell drugs to kids that kill them, like, you need to die. I'm like, where the fuck is any of this coming from? Like, what about Rue? Was Rue, like, simple? She was a drug addict and a drug dealer. He literally had a conversation with her in this episode or the one before it where, like, you know, do you ever think about the people who are affected by the drugs that you're trafficking and stuff like that? And it's like, that is literally, like, the antithesis of what this entire show has been, where, like, people do awful things, but they, you know, they have good intentions, or they get lost along the way, and it's so hard to be wrapped up in addiction and the things that it can make you do and the way it can ruin your life and how it affects people around you and all of these things. And you're literally just coming out and saying, no, actually, it's simple. It's simple. You really just have to go and, you know, if a loved one of yours dies from this horrible disease that takes over people's lives, you actually just have to go kill some guys about it and you'll feel better. Like, what the fuck? Like, it is just the antithesis of everything that we've seen throughout this whole show. And Ali himself is, like, this, you know, character who has been redeemed. We see in his flashback, like, instances where he, like, beat his wife and was this horrible person, like, before going through this whole change and everything. So, like, okay, so are you just an irredeemable bad dude and, like, you should be dead too? Like, that is, like, simplistic thinking like to the max. And yeah, when I saw him fucking like sawing off that shotgun, I was like, you cannot be serious. And like a standoff here to avenge Rue, avenge someone who is you're trying to make this whole thing about like, yeah, this is a tragic, you know, addict's death, and you think that avenging someone in a shootout in a strip club is going to be the way to do it. Like this makes sense like in the mind of a fucking child. It's like as soon as I see him like, you know, walking up to the strip club and he bolts the door and everything, I'm like, this must hit so hard if you're stupid. Like this is just it's like such an immature view of the world. We're dealing with serious things here. We're dealing with things that people actually, you know, contend with every single day. And like you just want to simplify it to, yeah, I want to see like some guys do some cool shootouts in the strip club, and you know, never mind Ali not thinking that, you know, some random people get shot during this. Like, is that justice? Is that like your, you know, your belief system? Like, no, that's not into consideration. It was just so beyond like I just can't stand it. It was like, oh my God. I hate anything that is, it just takes anything that had any bit of nuance and complications and just like, nope, I need to go do this thing because I need to do this thing. Like, just so ridiculous.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't really
crashing
know how
out.
to
I'm
follow
having
up
my first
that.
crash out. I'm having my first crash out on the pod.
Only took 29 episodes. All we had to do was talk about Euphoria season 3. Well, let's not. We're not going to talk too much longer about it, but
Yeah.
I do want to talk about the final scene. Let's talk about the final scene. It makes sense that they ended it on somewhat of a poignant note, I guess, if you want to call it that. And again, Coleman Domingo, he did the best with the material that he was given, but I was like, oh, okay, so this is really how it ends. Rue dies, a shootout happens, and then they all say grace, and then that's it. Okay, bye.
To the homestead where all problems are solved.
The
This was
homestead
just,
with the girl that looks exactly like Sydney Sweeney.
yeah. Yeah, this was like, and again, I'm attacking Sam Levinson directly here because I would assume that he had, you know, the largest hand in this. Like, so much
He
of the
had the
season
only
felt,
hand in this,
yeah,
clearly.
yeah, as far as we know. So, you know, so much of the season felt so like in its ideology and everything felt so right wing, and like I'm a leftist liberal person, and just none of that jives with me, and it felt so forced as well, and because so much of this, the philosophy of the season, everything has been that sort of like, you know, misogynistic feeling of like, you know, fuck bitches get money. It's very much, you know, of that ilk, and that, you know, the world's hard, just go, you know, get your bag and fuck everyone else and all that stuff. And it's like it wants to have its cake and eat it too, and then like switch to the other side of like right wing ideology and be like, you know, yes, people are living in that horrible, tough world out there, but like what we really need to do is glorify like this like trad wife lifestyle on the homestead that will like cleanse your inner soul, and like it's, you know, it's there's no in between. Again, it just simplifies everything to, well, I guess there's good and evil. I guess there's, you know, all the big bad scary drug dealers in the city, and all the stripper sluts who are gonna like ruin your life, and then, you know, what you really have to do is just cleanse yourself of that and go live on a fucking farm. Like, are you kidding? What the fuck does that even mean? Like, this used to be a very like queer, diverse show, and it ends with these like racist, misogynistic tropes and Rue saying God bless us all. And I at no point did I detect any like irony there. Like, I don't think that it was trying to, you know, subvert any of that and say like, oh no, you can't run away from these things, or you know, this idealistic homestead is actually also infected with, you know, the American nightmare and stuff like that. Like, I don't get any of that. It just genuinely felt like an uncomplicated, like, yeah, if Ali comes here with these simple folk, then, you know, he'll be able to find some peace. Like, okay, what the fuck? And like, we can, you know, mention that throughout this whole season, Christianity and religion has been like a huge theme, but I never went beyond a surface level examination of it. Like, Rue is constantly contending with it. She's trying to read the Bible and have this be some sort of a savior for her, but even that, like, Rue seems to view it like it's like this karma reward system. Like, she's just kind of like, hey, I've done some bad shit. Like, if I believe in God, like, maybe I'll, you know, I'll be all right and I'll get to heaven or something. Like, it's just blind faith without any of that like spirituality behind it that, you know, we've seen her talk about with Ali before. And like the show just doesn't question that. It's like, yeah, go, you know, Ali is a Muslim character, and by the end he changes his name and is like embracing Christianity now. Like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, what are you saying? And it's just like so. And again, I'm not a religious person. But I respect people who have religion, and I really don't think that like what we needed in 2026 was like an uncritical look at like, you know, you should probably just say no to drugs and go find God. Like, fuck off. Like, like where the fuck do you get off trying to like preach that as any sort of solution to like the very real problems that we are facing in this country, and the empathy towards people who deal with it? Like, just fuck off, Sam Levinson.
Fuck off, Sam Levinson is a perfect way to pretty much wrap up this discussion. Is this going to get any Emmy nominations? If so, what's it going to get? Coleman Domingo nomination?
Yeah, Coleman Domingo. I wouldn't be surprised if Zendaya gets nominated again. I don't think that she would bring home the win again. I guess she would also make history like Jean Smart if she won for this. And
it would have to be like a very thin race if she were to win this. But like I said before, I think Rhea Seehorn is winning for Pluribus. I think there's already a really strong narrative behind that. But it wouldn't surprise me entirely if Zendaya at least gets nominated for this, because she's already won 2 Emmys for this show, which is so crazy to me. Like, that she has 2 Emmys for this. It's like, not that they're not deserving, but like, you watch this show and you would never think that she would have won 2 acting Emmys for this. I would say both of them were deserving personally, but it's like, it's just
she's never bad, even when the show is bad around her. So
yeah, 100%. And other than those 2, I'm sure it's going to get some below the line nominations and everything, but that's about it. Also, one last thing to bring up. As someone with the middle name Hans, I love Hans Zimmer very dearly. What the fuck was the deal with the music here? Like, truly, what the hell? Hans Zimmer clearly just hopped onto this project for a paycheck, and he just gave us the laziest composition that I've ever heard in my entire life. Labyrinth, who had done the music for the first 2 seasons, originally had music for this season, and right before it came out, he's like, fuck all of you, I'm out. And then Hans Zimmer came in to do the music, and my God, what the fuck?
Yeah, the Labyrinth music was so much of part of the identity of the show, and yeah, I don't know if we know that it was like an issue with Sam Levinson in particular, but
I would be shocked if it wasn't an issue with him.
Yeah, again, fuck
seems
off,
like
Sam
everybody
Levinson.
had a fucking issue with him.
But yeah, I was enjoying like throughout the whole season, people, you know, posting edits of like putting Labyrinth songs over scenes from this season, and like it actually genuinely did improve some of it, because yeah, it I don't know why you don't at least try to like recreate some of that or something. Like it was such a part of the show, and yeah, you just have like Hans Zimmer turning in like C- work here, and it clashed tonally a lot. It didn't set the mood at all. It didn't like match the intensity a lot of the times. Yeah, it just felt really, really off.
Again, like, this entire season felt off from the first 2 seasons. Like, everything just felt off. Like, nothing felt coherent. It was the most gigantic mess of a season of television that I maybe have ever seen, quite frankly. And it's like the biggest downgrade, I think, from a season of television that I've watched in my lifetime, too. Because, like, I've talked about TV in like before on this podcast. Like we reviewed The Mandalorian and Grogu a few weeks ago, and I said that season 3 was a step down from season 2. Admittedly, I never even finished season 3, but even I could recognize that season 3 of Mandalorian is more watchable than season 3 of Euphoria, because at least season 3 of Mandalorian knows exactly what it wants to be. This has zero clue what it wants to be. And I genuinely hope with every fiber of my being that not only HBO, but anyone else, I hope that nobody works with Sam Levinson going forward. I would be genuinely shocked if anyone, actually, I guess I wouldn't be, but I hope that nobody works with him again, because, you know, he created a show that started off with a lot of promise, and it just fizzled. Big time.
I feel like 99% of the time when we talk about an actor or a filmmaker or anything, I'm like, yeah, we want them to be booked and busy. I want to see them in a million things. Like, I want Sam Levinson on the unemployment line. Like, you're done. Like, this is like, I can't imagine. And like I said, I I checked out The Idol and like morbid curiosity. I stuck with this because I had watched the other two seasons and like, in for a penny, in for a pound. But I cannot imagine like checking out any future project that he has. Like unless I hear that it is so drastically different and improved, I really don't think that I could. Like I'm not interested in his storytelling and his filmmaking and his point of view at all. Like I don't really care about anything he has to say.
I'd rather watch Malcolm and Marie again, quite frankly, than watch season 3 of Euphoria again. Because at least there's that
I mean, if I have
great
to
scene
pick,
of
yeah.
John David Washington angrily eating mac and cheese. That's cinema if I've ever seen it. But yeah, goodbye Euphoria. Good fucking bye. Good riddance. Thank God. Sayonara.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
oh my God. I was so relieved when I woke up. We're recording this on Tuesday night, so it was yesterday morning when I woke up, and then it was like, HBO confirms Euphoria is officially over, and I'm like, thank fucking God.
we're free. We already knew Zendaya and Jacob Elordi were free, but now everybody is free. So we can
Everyone is free,
rest
thankfully.
easy.
Hopefully on to bigger and better things, except for Sam Levinson. All right. I think that's where we should call it quits. And with that, that is a wrap on today's episode of Some Like It Real. Thank you all for joining us. If you're interested in following along our journey, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Brian Setfield.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Vero Albarella and on Letterboxd at Alba_real_A.
And you can follow the show on all socials at Some Like It Real, as well as on YouTube at Some Like It Real. Be sure to subscribe and share it around and tune in every Monday and Thursday for a new episode of Some Like It Real on podcast platforms.
We'll see you next time.